Here we are on the front of our Keystone Bullet 260 RVS. We're going to do a technical walkthrough on your unit and go over our components that are on here, just like on your data delivery with technician. This is a little refresher. Now, some of your components may vary in brand. Your ton jack may be different, your fridge may be different. If we don't cover your exact brand component on here, or you want a deeper dive on either that component or the component that we do cover here, going over some troubleshooting advice or more operation on those components, you can find it on our YouTube channel for Great American RV, and look under the playlist Haps Helpful Hacks, and we'll go into a deeper dive for some of these components. So you can check that out there. In the meantime, we're going to start on here. We have our 7-way plug here in the front. This is to transfer our lights from our vehicle we're towing with to our camper, and it will also carry the line for our brakes on our vehicle to our trailer, as well as a charge line that will charge our battery up from our vehicle while we are traveling down the road. Now, we will also notice on the front of here, we do have a silver pull cable right here. This pull cable is for our breakaway. That is a 12-volt operated component. This needs to have a little lanyard clip on here and hooked up to your receiver hitch on your truck, not to your safety chains or the hitch itself, because if that's what breaks, this pin is intended to pull out of that box, and the 12-volt battery on here will activate the brakes on your trailer and bring it to a stop. A couple things: we need to make sure that we have a good 12-volt battery on here, because if our trailer detaches and it's dead and that pin pulls out, the brakes aren't going to activate because we have no power. Number two, we need to make sure that pin is inserted properly in that box and it stays in there while we're traveling, otherwise those brakes will be active. We also have our 12-volt power ton jack up here, operated flip of a switch here in the front, extend, retract. We also have a light on here. If we follow the power line down to our battery, that line is going to have a 12-volt blade fuse in it. In the event that this jack is not operating, you want to check that first, and we also want to check our battery power and make sure we have a good 12 volts to operate it. If we run into an occasion where we cannot figure out what's going on, there is a black cap right here on the top. We pull that black cap off. We take our override rod right here and we stick it in, and we can manually crank that jack up and down to get us by. Behind that, we have our dual propane tanks. Our dual propane tanks have a dual propane tank regulator on there. That regulator has a selector valve where we can choose the left or right tank. We want to have both tanks on, and it will feed off of the tank that you have that valve selected to. If that tank runs dry, you'll get a red indicator letting you know that tank is empty, and it will start pulling from that secondary tank so you don't lose flow of propane during that period. Just need to monitor it, know when your tanks are empty so you can fill it back up. Behind that, we have our battery storage center, as well as our 12-volt disconnect for that battery. That battery disconnect is intended for when we are not using our camper, we have it stored, and we are not plugged in. Want to turn that battery disconnect off so we're not pulling voltage off of that battery to the camper when we're not using it, and we're ensured that we have some battery power left whenever we come to hook up. Now, if we are storing our unit plugged in, we want to leave that battery disconnect on so it's charging our battery. On the driver's side of our unit, we have our solar on the side plug right here. This is if we are covered by trees when we park our unit, whether for storage or dry camping with no plug-ins, and we can hook a solar panel to here and put it out in the sunlight so it will help charge that battery system. You do have a solar controller in here in this front compartment. That controller is going to convert that solar power into a charging power for that battery. You also have a solar disconnect over here to the right. This is different from our battery disconnect. This solar disconnect is just for our solar system. Your battery will still charge when that disconnect is off for the battery. So if you don't have your unit plugged in for storage, you can turn that battery disconnect off and leave the solar disconnect on, so it will charge your battery while you're storing it. If you don't want that solar system on, well, that is when you're going to go to this solar disconnect and just cut it off. You are also, in that front compartment up top, you are prepped for an inverter system, meaning it is already pre-wired for it. You would have to purchase that inverter. Our inverter systems change 12 volts to 110. So if you have several batteries in there and you have plenty of voltage, you can change from 12-volt battery power to 110 power to run coffee pots, small appliances like a TV, and you can charge your phone off of that as well if you don't have a plug-in for the campground. You're out off grid somewhere. In here we also have our Lippert Tire Link system. Our Lippert Tire Link system is a pre-wired sensor in here. You would have to purchase the package where it has the Bluetooth connection and the sensors to be able to connect onto the tires, and you can monitor the temperature and air pressure on your tires. We also have our control center right here for all our water fixtures and our jacks. We'll go over that right now. So here we have our control center in that front compartment. Up top you'll see our Key TV system. This system is where we'll hook up our park cable if they have one, or our external satellite system right here. We'll look on the inside where these things go and how it operates. This power light right here indicates that we do have 12-volt power to that Key TV system, so it is operating and doing what it needs to do. Down below that we do have our outdoor water faucet or shower hookup. We have a quick connect right here. We put that male fitting in and we can lock it in. We have hot and cold water. We can put a shower head faucet on here or a sprayer, and we'll have that outside water. To disconnect, push that ring in and it pops right out. To our right here we have our extend and retract. This is for our stabilizer jacks, LCI stabilizer jacks. These are not intended to level your unit. They're only to stabilize your unit. If we want to level our unit, we'll use the stacker blocks that you can purchase, and we want to put them under our tires and level our unit from left to right, depending on the slope of the pad that we are putting our camper on. Once we have that leveled out left to right, we'll use our tongue jack to level our unit from front to back. Once your unit is level, you'll come to these stabilizer jacks, you'll run your jacks down, and you want to touch the ground and a little bit more after that. You don't want to put a ton of weight on it because it will cripple those jacks and make them bend and break, and warranty does not cover that type of damage. This switch below that operates our underglow lights right near our stabilizer jacks. We can see outside under there that will operate that. And here we have our satellite prep. If we have a satellite dish installed on our roof, this can come from there and hook up to our satellite right here on our Key TV system. Here we have our freshwater tank connection. We'll take our water hose and we can put it in there and fill our fresh tank. We can monitor the level of that by our meter on the inside, we'll touch on later. This is for if we are dry camping. We don't have a city water connection to hook to, so we'll pull from our fresh tank by initiating our 12-volt water pump. Now we can drain this tank out. That's going to be that blue line that's just under our unit we'll look at in a little while. And we want to drain it out when we're not using that water. We don't need it. Number one, it saves weight on our unit when we're traveling. And number two, that water is going to get stagnant after a while. So we don't want to leave it in there if we don't need it. To the right here, we have our city water connection. This is if we do have a water hose hookup at the campground or wherever we're staying. We hook the water line up to here, and that will give us water pressure to all of our fixtures. Below that, we have our winterization valve. This valve is only going to be used when we are winterizing our unit, and we'll turn to there, to that on position, and we'll use this knob right here to pump antifreeze into our system. More information on winterization is available in your owner's manual or one of our videos in the helpful hacks section. Down at the bottom, we have our black tank flush. Just know right now this is where that's located. We'll go over the operation of that black tank flush when we hit our sewage valve in the rear. You also have a cap down here at the bottom that you can pull off, and that is where your lines will come in order to run all of your water and cable and everything else. Our 12-volt jacks do have an override down here on the bottom on this side. We'll check that out as well. So here we are back on the driver's side of our unit, opposite of our motor in and our switch, and we have this handle. We can see this handle has a little slice in it, and it will line up with the post on that jack. We line it up and we can manually run that jack up and down if we need to. You'll also notice next to those jacks there is a single blue line. That single blue line is to drain out the fresh tank, like we talked about, that onboard water storage. You can find that line right there with that valve, open it up and drain the water out. We'll notice on our slide out we have cables on the top and the bottom on each side. This is a cable slide, 12-volt operated component. If you want more information on that slide out, we do have it in the helpful hacks section of our YouTube channel. Now we'll notice here on the rear bottom of our unit, we have our sewage hookup. This is where we'll hook that sewage line to either the dump station or our campsite if they have a sewage connection there. And we have our two valves. Labeled right here, we have our black tank and our gray tank on the right. So black tank, gray tank. Our black tank is where our sewage goes from our toilet. What's important about our black tank that we know is that we leave that valve closed all the time unless we are dumping. We don't want to leave it open, otherwise the water, everything will drain out of here. But any solids that are in there will dry up and stick to that tank and you can't clean it out. So you leave that valve closed and you always leave a couple of gallons of water in there. So let's go through the process. We're out camping, we had that valve closed, we have our couple gallons of water in there with our chemical. We're done camping, we have our hose hooked up at the dump station or the campsite. We are ready to drain it out. We pull that black tank valve and we drain out our system. When we're done, we're gonna go to that black tank flush that we talked about in the front compartment. We hook a water hose up to that and turn it on. That is going to be a little jet inside that black tank that's gonna help flush out that system. Now we can let it go ahead and run, flush it out a little bit. We can close this valve for about 30 to 60 seconds and open it back up. That will let a little bit of water build up in that tank and then flush it out again when we open that valve. We just want to monitor it to make sure we don't overfill that tank. Now, we keep doing that until we check that monitor on the inside and we see that our sensors are empty. And then we can close it off again and add a couple gallons of water to that tank. Or we can do it and close it off, shut off our black tank flush, close that valve off, and go to our toilet and hold that pedal down there if we're more comfortable that way. Fill that tank up with some water and then put some more chemicals in it. Whether you're storing it or continuing to use it, definitely add more chemical. Now our gray tank, as long as we have a line hooked up to here, let's say at the campsite, you can leave that valve open all the time. That's going to be our shower water, our sink water, all that stuff. That can drain straight out of here with no issue. So we can leave that valve open as long as we have that hose connection right here. Here on the rear of our unit, we have our Keystone camera ready system, which means you're pre-wired for a backup camera to monitor when we're backing up or traveling down the road. It already has the wiring there. You just have to purchase the camera system. We also have our factory provided ladder right here to gain access to our roof. We need to gain access to our roof because we need to check it after every trip. Any low-lying tree limbs or anything like that can scratch and puncture the rubber on our roof, causing an opening for water entry. We need to check that and make sure we're taking care of those holes in there in the event that they happen. We also need to check our sealants every 60 to 90 days on the roof and make sure we don't have any peeling, cracking, or opening on those sealants, allowing water entry to come in. And we also need to check all of our sides, our lights, our trims, our windows on the sealant on there for the same thing. Seals open, crack, allow water entry to come in. That is required by the manufacturers to stay under warranty every 60 to 90 days. This is customer maintenance. It needs to be done just like changing the oil in your car. Otherwise, manufacturers will not participate in any water leaks if it is not taken care of properly. This will help your camper last for years to come, so please make sure you're doing that maintenance on it every 60 to 90 days. On our unit, we also have our spare tire, of course, and we have our 50-amp power cord. Our power cord inserts in and a little twist to the right to lock it in. We do have a retainer ring on there you want to go ahead and tighten up. That way that cable doesn't pull out, cause any arcing or anything like that from being loose. Once we have that plugged in, then we go plug it in at the campsite. Don't plug it in at the campsite first, then plug it in here. Otherwise, it'll be powered up and you'll have some arcing there. We also want to make sure that our AC is off before we plug it into the campsite so we don't have any surges on that compressor. Your back bumper right here has caps on the end of it. You pull those caps off, it does have a little holes right here in here, and that can vent out. You can store your sewage hose in there rather than putting it in your front compartment and having that all nasty. Just make sure you clean that tube out every now and again from any debris and let it vent properly so it doesn't rust. In the passenger side of our unit, we have our pass-through storage here. You'll notice a light right here as well as a switch. That switch controls our front cap lights that we have up there. Behind me we have our 12-volt powered awning. Our 12-volt powered awning is a sunshade only, not a rain shade. In the event weather is coming, high winds, anything like that, we want to roll that awning in to prevent any damage. If we allow water to pool onto that awning, it is going to collapse, cause damage. The wind can take this like a parachute, all those things. You leave your campsite for a short or extended period of time, might want to roll that awning in just to be sure. In the event that kind of damage does happen, it's going to become an insurance claim for the customer. Now, another thing we need to know about our awning is we will have some residual water runoff, whether it be dew on the roof of our camper or AC runoff from condensation that gets onto that awning. Once again, we don't want it to pool up, so we need to pitch our awning either to the rear or to the front, wherever we want that water to drip off to. And to do that, we simply just pull this arm right here, and that will pitch that arm down and it will stay in place. Like I said, do it in the front or do it in the rear, both arms are the same. When we're done with our camping trip, simply just push that arm back up, that'll level out our awning, and we can retract it into that stored position. As we move down under our awning, of course, we have some 12-volt lighting under here. We have our speakers for our outdoor right here that is controlled by a radio on the interior. We have our furnace exhaust. Whenever that furnace is active, it'll be blowing hot air out of there, and that little cover can get warm, so beware of that. Here we have our outdoor TV mount, and we have our Key TV system. That is for where our cable can come out and either hook to a receiver if we're doing satellite, or hook straight to the TV if we're doing cable or antenna. We have our outlet right here for our TV, and our Girard tankless water heater system that will provide us with endless hot water. That Girard tankless water heater system is an LP component, and it will be on demand. So it's only going to activate whenever you turn the hot water on in your unit. Below our J-wrap in the underbelly, behind our tires, you will see a red and blue line coming out. That red and blue line are our low point drains. That is where we will go to drain all the water out of our system when we're preparing for that winterization. We also have this vent above my head. This is for the vent over our stovetop. If we want to vent while we're cooking, we want to make sure these two tabs are open to where that vent will actually open up and vent the air out. When we are storing our unit or not using that, we want to just push it closed and make sure that those tabs are locked in to where no rodents, insects, or anything like that can get in there and make a nest. Here we have our outdoor kitchen in the rear. We have our sink, and we have our outdoor refrigerator. That outdoor refrigerator is just a little dorm fridge. You do have a freezer section up top. You can control your cold by the knob right there, how cold you want it. This is a 110 operated appliance. So anytime we plug into a power source, whether 15, 30, or 50 amp service, that fridge is going to operate. When it operates, it's going to cool on the inside, it's going to freeze in the freezer section, we're going to build up some condensation or ice. So it is important when we are done camping or we unplug our unit, guess what? That ice is going to melt in there. We're going to have that condensation drip down. The water can leak out and damage our wood components down here. So you have to open up this fridge, defrost it, get all the water, dry that box out, and make sure none of it drips out onto here whenever you store it. Otherwise, manufacturer's not going to cover that kind of damage. So make sure we're doing the care that we need to whenever we're done camping so we don't cause ourselves any damage. Here we have our outdoor griddle. We push down on those two blue tabs right there, and then we can slide that out. We have our grill right here. At the bottom, we do have an LP line that comes out. Notice we have a male fitting right here. Under our J-wrap along the frame rail, we have a quick connect. That female quick connect, we'll insert that in there. On that quick connect valve, there is a little lever. That lever has to be in the open position in line in order for the gas to flow out. So make sure you have that turned properly. When we disconnect, we store that LP line back in behind the grill in the cubby hole. We push our tabs down and we can slide and store that grill back in. Make sure we have it clicked in properly so it doesn't slide out during travel. On our entry door, we do have friction controlled hinges. So you're going to feel a little resistance when you open that door. That is so the wind doesn't come and slam that door shut or open. Next is our solid steps. Real nice feature right here. Our solid steps are stored, making sure that we open our door all the way so our hinges don't hit, and we give that little blue tab a pull to make sure that it locks into our frame. We give it a tug and we know it's locked in. When we're bringing our steps down, pull that blue lever and we can drop our steps down. Now, one thing we need to ensure is that we are leveling our steps. After we've leveled our unit, we need to level our steps. So we come over here, we drop them down. If we need to adjust our legs on our steps, we can push down this little silver tab right here, and that allows us to run these legs up and down. Now, it's easy to do once we have our steps down. If we need to reposition, just push on that little silver tab. You can lift the leg itself, pull them in or out, and put them where they need to go in order to level the steps. Now, we need to make sure we level them properly, because when we open and close that entry door, this bottom frame right here can hit the step frame if we don't have it leveled properly. And also your door will not open and close properly because this threshold is not sitting down where it needs to be. So level those steps where they need to be and you won't have any of those issues. As we walk into the interior of our unit, we have our Keystone Control Center. We'll have our meter right here. If we hit our batteries, our fresh tank, our black tanks and gray tanks, all that can be metered by the lights right here to our right whenever we push that button. Now, on your particular unit, you're only going to have one black tank and one gray tank. This is a generic panel that they put in all the units, so you can ignore gray and black too. Our water pump, if you remember, is going to pull from that fresh tank. As long as we have water in that fresh tank and we're not hooked to a city water connection, you kick that water pump on, and that will supply water to our fixtures if we're dry camping. If we do have a city water connection or our tank is empty, we want to make sure that pump is off so we're not running it down and tearing it up. Our porch light controls our awning lights outside. Our ceiling light obviously is our ceilings on the interior. We have our slide out button in and out to control that 12-volt cable slide. Our awning, 12-volt motor, in and out. Once again, all these components are 12 volts. If we have any issues, we go to our 12-volt fuse panel next to our breaker panel that we'll cover in a little while. Next, we'll go over our AC control. We'll start with our cool option first. Our cool will cool the air throughout our unit. We, of course, set our thermostat to whatever point we want it to be, and we have our fan speed options. We have low and high. For low and high, that fan will run all the time. Now, whenever we want that fan to cut off, whenever the compressor cuts off, much like we likely do at home, we have it on auto. That system will shut off and on with the compressor. Our next mode is our heat mode. Our heat mode activates our gas-powered furnace on our unit. We choose our set point, and our heater will come on whenever necessary. There is fan speeds on here, but it does not change the fan speed on that furnace. It is a single fan speed on there controlled by the furnace board. Our next mode is our fan mode. Our fan mode simply circulates air throughout our unit without cooling it or anything. This will come out of our rooftop air, and we can just change from high to low to control that fan speed if we wish. That fan will stay on the entire time when we have it in our fan mode. Our last mode is our dry mode. Our dry mode is like a dehumidifier. We can choose our set point and it will cool our unit down to that set point, and it will continue to cool past that, but alternate every 6 to 10 minutes off and on. That way it doesn't drop that temperature too low and freeze you out of the unit, but it still dries the air in your unit. Another thing to note with our furnace is that the air is going to come out of the vents on the floor. It's not going to come out of the rooftop air. Your only rooftop air is going to be your fan and your cool and your dry. Your heat will come out of those floor vents from the furnace. So as we come in our entry door towards the floor, we can notice we have a COLP detector. This is to make us aware of any dangerous gases that are in our unit. It will alert us and we need to vacate our unit. We need to test this monthly along with our smoke detector and hold down that button, make sure that it's chirping and operating properly. It is a 12-volt powered unit. We can see a little green light down here at the bottom that lets us know that it is on. We want to also take note that there is an expiration date on these, whether it's on the front or stamped on the back side. You would have to unscrew it to see if you don't see it on the front, and they're good for about 5 to 7 years. We want to make sure that we have that within date and working properly. We do have a little floor light right here that'll provide some lighting. That switch is next to our thermostat. To the left, we have our pantry or storage area here. Down at the bottom, we have our 110 breakers. Our 110 breakers control our microwaves, our TV outlets, so on and so forth throughout our unit. If we have an issue with any of those components, we come over here and check that breaker first to ensure that it is not tripped. To the right of that, we have our 12-volt fuses. Our 12-volt fuses operate things like our lights, our awning, and so on. We want to come here if that doesn't have power and it's not operational, and check and make sure that we don't have a fuse blown. All these are labeled to where it tells you what components they operate, so you should be able to identify that easily. Also located behind this breaker panel, if you were to pull it out, that's where your converter is going to be. That converter is your battery charger essentially. Nothing you need to worry about, just letting you know where the location of it is. As long as you're plugged into a 15, 30, or 50 amp service, that system is going to charge your battery while you're hooked up to it. And like I said, essentially just a battery charger, changing 110 voltage to 12 volts. Our living room area, you'll have your Connects TV, which is a 2-zone TV controlling your speakers on the interior and exterior. We also have FM radio, Bluetooth, and of course our regular TV for this system. So rather than having a separate radio system somewhere, that's all controlled off of our TV right here and plays through our speakers. Next thing to cover is, once again, we've been talking about this Key TV system. You'll have the Key TV right here on this TV as well. You'll have a satellite and cable antenna port on each of your TV spots. Satellite, you're going to hook up, like I said, that external or rooftop satellite. It's going to go to a receiver for Dish Network or DirecTV first, and then a HDMI to your TV to be able to catch those channels. Cable or antenna. Any old school campers know that you used to have an antenna boost button that you had to push off and on when you wanted to swap between cable or scan for antenna channels. You had to turn it off for cable, so on and so forth. That is no more. With Keystone, they have a Key TV system. You can swap from antenna to cable and scan for channels without having to worry about that boost button on this system. It automatically knows what you're doing, and it will work in the background to turn off that charge system if needed. Down below we have our electric fireplace. We'll go over the information on that. Here we have our fireplace. We have a sensor right up here in the top right. We have to aim that remote at to turn it on. We have our Celsius and Fahrenheit temperature we can change to. And right here, this little flame icon is going to change the dimness of our flame. If we want to change the lighting of our flame, we hit the light bulb on the screen down here at the bottom, and it'll give you some different options right there. If we want to operate our heater on a timer, once again, electric heater, it is going to be this button right here. It looks like a clock, and when we push it, we can see some times pop up: 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, all the way up to 8, and then it will go to 0 hours, letting you know that that timer is off. If we want to change our temperature, we'll use one of these two buttons at the bottom, and we can see once again we have a temperature down there, and we will go ahead and raise it until it kicks on, or lower it, we want it to kick off, or we can keep going until it says on, and that heater will stay running all the time. We kick it up one more time, and it's going to say OF, meaning that that system is off. In our kitchen area, we have our 12-volt Furrion refrigerator. We do have a knob right here. Most 12-volt refrigerators are going to be the same. You're going to have a control somewhere in here to swap it from cold to colder, or to position it to the off position. Your freezer box, you may have a separate one in there depending on the brand. Same thing as our outdoor refrigerator. Anytime we have 12-volt power to our system on this one, this is going to be freezing, this is going to be cooling, we're going to end up with ice up here and moisture right here. If we are storing our unit and we're shutting our system down, which we can do either from our disconnect, or we can turn this knob to the off position. This is going to shut down. We need to defrost our freezer and clean out our ice box, get all the water out of there, moisture out of here. There's no drain tubes on this system, so water is going to accumulate, and once again, airtight, not watertight gaskets around these doors. That water will leak out and damage our wood components around it, and that is not a warrantable thing. So we need to make sure we're taking care of this properly. This also helps prevent any mold or mildew from forming inside of our fridge and freezer. Behind me we have our standard 110 operated microwave, and here we have our vent. So our vent is above our 3-burner stove. We're cooking, we want to use it. Remember, on the outside, we need to unclip those 2 clips and be able to exhaust that air out of there. We also have a light on here as well. We can see our 3-burner cooktop. That 3-burner cooktop has that glass cover. Our glass cover can be used for more counter space. When we're traveling, we need to make sure that all of this is down so it doesn't fall and bust that glass up. So we're ready to use our 3-burner stove. We have our 3 knobs down here. We have a little fire indicator on here. We'll turn it to there, and we will click until we get that stovetop burning. So once we have it burning, we can adjust it high or low, whatever we want it to be. And we also notice that we have a red ring around these. If we flip this switch, it's blue. But no matter what, we have a red ring whenever that stovetop is activated according to whatever burner. Now, I will suggest this is the best place to come to after you have pulled your unit out of storage. After you pulled your unit out of storage, if you had your propane tanks off, you're going to end up with air in your lines. Or let's say you just swapped out your propane tanks, you're going to have air in your lines. Come to your burner top first, turn it to that flame ignition and light it up. It's not going to be that quick. It's going to take a little bit longer to do, and you just keep hitting that igniter until it lights up and you have that nice crisp blue flame, no orange poppy stuff. That helps you ensure that you have all the air out of your propane system. We want to do this before we activate things like our water heater or our furnace, because it will help prevent those things from going into a fault mode and you having to recycle them over and over again. This is a much quicker, easier way to do that. Now our oven down below, not quite the same story with that, but we're going to walk through the process of how that works. So our oven, we're going to take this knob to the right. We have to turn it to our flame piece, and we have to continue to hold that down while we hit our igniter. As we hit that igniter, eventually we should see that pilot light down there. Once that pilot lights, we continue to hold this knob down for about 30 to 60 seconds, and we have to warm up that thermocouple. Once we believe it's warmed up enough, we turn it to our temperature that we desire, and that burner tube should light up. If our pilot went out and our burner tube didn't light, go back to that flame icon, push that knob down and relight your pilot and hold it down for a little bit longer. That thermocouple just needs a little bit more time to warm up. When we're done, we can turn it to that off position. Now, the first time you light this after you bled the air out of your systems, it may take a little bit longer. Some people still use a long stem lighter. That's fine, whatever floats your boat. After the first time you do it, it should be pretty quick and easy after that. Once again, that switch on the right turns all your knobs with that blue light, or you can flip it down. It does the blue light on the knobs as well as a light in your oven. Here we are in our bathroom. Our bathroom does have a vent up here. That vent is suggested to be turned on when you take a shower to help get any moisture out of this bathroom, any heat, humidity, and everything, and that helps you out by preventing any mold or mildew from forming in here. Our shower, we do have our travel latches on our shower doors. We want to make sure that we have that latch while we're traveling down the road so we don't have any damage to our doors. Same thing with our pocket doors. Those have travel latches as well. We open up our shower. We have our standard hot-cold knob, right? So pretty easy operation, standard hot-cold. We find our sweet spot. Well, if we're dry camping, we want to conserve the amount of water we're putting in that gray tank as well as the water we're using out of our fresh tank, right? So rather than having to turn those knobs off and on to be able to stop after we've soaked down, then we want to lather up. Well, in between those spots, we can use our shower head on-off valve right here. We turn it one way and it will shut that system off without having to mess with our knobs and find that sweet spot. We can go ahead and lather up. When we're ready to rinse off, we slide that over and we will have water come out of that spigot again. Just know that that first burst of water is probably going to be a little cold, so turn it to the wall first. Then you can go ahead and rinse off, and you're conserving that water in between steps of showering to make sure you're not using a lot out of your fresh tank and you're not putting a lot in your gray tank. So a nice little feature right there. If you're hooked to city water, don't worry about that. Just use your faucet as normal because you have all the water you can need. Also, as long as you have that sewage connection down at the bottom, you can drain whatever you need as well. Behind me, we have our GFCI controlled outlet. That GFCI outlet, this is our main one. You're going to see a test button and a reset button on here. That's going to control your GFCI protected outlets like your outdoor one or your one in your kitchen. These are all wet locations, so it is required that they have a GFCI outlet. If you plug too many griddles, coffee pots, curling irons, whatever into those outlets, it's going to trip it right here. And if those outlets get wet, it's going to trip it right here. You'll notice it's tripped because there'll be a little orange light that pops up down there on the side of it, and we can signify that by hitting the left button, which is our test button, and that lets us know that our system is in a fault. In the event we notice that, unplug the other items that you have in there if it was due to overcurrent, and then we come over here, hit that reset button, and that light will go out, and you should have power back to all of those outlets. We also have our Girard tankless water heater system controller right here. Let's go over the operation of that. Here we have our Girard tankless water heater control. We have our Celsius Fahrenheit button right here at the top left to swap between the two types of temperature. We have our on-off button, and we have our up and down that will change the temperature that we have set for our unit. Now, once we initiate our hot water, you'll see a couple of things happen. You'll see our temperature up here change to our output temperature, which is the temperature of the water coming out of our tankless water heater system. We'll also see a shower head icon at the bottom right. That shows that water is in use. And then we'll see our fan icon on the bottom left, lets us know that our tankless water heater system is initiating. Once we see the flame that pops up in the middle of our unit, that means that our system is actually heating that water, and we'll see that temperature begin to increase. Now, these systems only run for 20 minutes before going into a shutoff mode. In the event that you're still using hot water after that point, just turn the hot water off and turn it back on, and it will reinitiate and begin to heat water again. Last thing to cover in our bathroom, of course, is our toilet. Our toilet is going to drain into our black tank system, right? Showers, sinks, all that stuff, gray tank, toilet, black tank. We're going to have a lever over here on the right. That is to be able to dump whatever's in our toilet. If we're using number one, hit that lever, send it to the drain, right? If we are doing number two, before we do it, we need to go ahead and hold that pedal down just a little bit to where that valve at the bottom is still closed. We'll see some water start to fill that bowl up. We need to fill it up about halfway, and then that's going to help us flush all of those solids down into our black tank. Once again, RV toilet paper only and our sewage. Those are only two things that go in here. Don't put anything else. It will cause issues with the drainage of the valve whenever you go to empty it out. I assure you, RV toilet paper and sewage only. Our dinette booth can drop down and add more sleeping quarters for us. We can do that by hitting our little yellow latch right here, pull it to the left, and then pretty easy, if we put our feet down on it, we can just slide that down. Of course, we move our legs out, and it will drop down into that position. When we're ready to bring it back up, kind of lift up on it, get our legs back under there, and we bring it back up into that position, and this latch should latch back in. We'll notice we have our ceiling assembly for our air conditioner up here. We have this valve that we can swap back and forth for this vent. If it's open, it's going to let all the cool air flow into just our living room area right here. If we want to, it's called a quick dump. If we want to cool this off quickly in this area, we leave that open. Now, if we want to use our ductwork in our ceiling to where that cool air flows from front to back, we need to make sure we have that closed off, otherwise it's not going to flow through that ductwork. We also have our return air vent right here. This does have a little filter on it. We need to pull that down and clean that filter every so often to make sure we are not restricting our AC. In our bedroom area, we do notice we have a vent up here. If we look right in front of that vent, we have a little cover plate. Our unit is pre-wired for a second AC. If it didn't already come with one, we do have a 110 line in there, and you already have a breaker in there. You would just have to purchase a second AC, have it installed, and you already have the power ran. We have our backer for our TV mount right here, and once again, that key TV system we talked about for satellite, cable, and antenna power. We'll also notice we have our Line Guard 4G LTE system right here. This is if we wanted to upgrade and purchase a router, we would install it right here. We pull that cover off, connect the wires, and mount that router. This is to help boost Wi-Fi signal if we have it at the campground, or go through a cellular provider and have a SIM card inserted in there to where we can have cellular Wi-Fi with us wherever we go. Something to look into, made by Winegard. We also have some storage under our bed. If we lift up the front of it, we can store a couple of items in that front cargo area.
Well, we hope you found that resourceful, but wait, there's more information on our Great American RV YouTube channel. This channel right here, find the playlist Hap's Helpful Hacks. We go over different products in this unit and we'll take a deeper dive with more diagnostics, more information, as well as helpful tips when you're out camping. Tell your buddies, tell your friends, like, share, subscribe, do all those awesome things on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you found us, and keep watching here at Great American RV Superstores, where we bring the how-to you.